ProView Network. Sebastian Earl with Aaron Rivera. It's that time of the year. Playoff baseball is right around the corner. First, though, what a fantastic regular season that just capped off this weekend with some surprise results, some craziness at the end, right?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, we all kind of, going into that last week, thought those districts were all locked up, thought that, everybody knew who was going to be number one, number two, and then we got some craziness. I mean, of course, you've got to give a big hand over to, of course, Cleveland on that side, and then Artesia trying to fight off Goddard, and Goddard ends up taking 4A, number one over there.
There was a chance, a slight chance, that La Cueva could have been, upset there for the district at the end, but the first inning of the second game of that doubleheader put a quick end to that.
Well, yeah, and that was the big worry, right? Because they walk in, El Dorado has 2 district losses, and they're the only team that can beat La Cueva, and La Cueva has to play against them to win that district in the end. And again, it's another one of those where we were looking at that district thinking Sandia, La Cueva maybe, and El Dorado makes a run for it there late.
Perfect example, though, of what these teams are going to face as they start the playoffs, Aaron, because, in that opening round, best of 3, that Friday, Saturday, you never want to try to hold your ace and then never get to Saturday, but you certainly want to throw them at the right time. So that Friday doubleheader, some teams you saw in El Dorado, right? Obviously, when they had Kersey on the hill, he can beat anybody. He showed it against La Cueva in game 1 of that doubleheader. But when he's not out there, they're just trying to patch it together, and a lot of teams do that. After their first or second pitcher, they're just looking for anybody that can give them an inning or so. So strategy plays a big part in that opening weekend. And then, of course, again, when we get to the second week, because pitch count matters. If you throw your ace first to get out of that opening round, or I should say the first day at the Reardon Complex, you try to hold them for the semi. No one really ever tries to play to hold them all the way to the championship.
No.
There's a lot of options available to these coaches, but not everyone has a lot of arms.
No, that's from top to bottom, whether you're playing the major leagues, you're playing high school, you're playing, T-ball. Well, not T-ball, but every level, they're always looking for that good pitcher, that good team. I mean, that's what, when you look at some of these teams across the state, they might have some great offense, but they're just missing pitchers. I mean, that's what separates a team like La Cueva that has all those options, like a Rio Rancho that has all those options. They have those pitchers, and that will get them across. But I think, ultimately, we should expect to see most of the stars on day one. Best pitchers usually come out at least throw the 60 or so. They have to take the day off once you get to that pitch count, but you want to throw them in that first day, because if you wait to the second day, they might end up pushing that pitch count and you don't get them in the championship game. And everybody knows you want the blue trophy. That's more important than anything, is getting that blue trophy.
It is a very unique circumstance that is unique to baseball. Almost every year, your best pitcher is not pitching on the day you're playing for a blue trophy, right? There's something to be said for that. I mean, yeah, it tests the entire roster, but it sure leaves a lot to be desired as a fan if you know the aces are never pitching for a championship.
True, but the other option is, do we just basically wait an extra week? We play those semifinals, and that certainly could be an option. It would look a lot more like football if we did that, where we wait an entire week. But yeah, it's the only sport where you really run into that situation, because even softball, right next door to baseball, those pitchers can throw as many pitches, and it doesn't put the same pressure on the arm, it doesn't put the same pressure on the elbows. And, it would be cool to be able to see those top players, but I think ultimately the question isn't who's your best pitcher. The team that just has the best pitcher shouldn't win the blue. It's the team that's the best team overall, and I think we still get that with this format. It's just, a little disappointing when you don't see the best pitcher on the mound in that championship game.
Last point about that, when would you throw your ace on Friday, that first day on Friday? Do you throw him in game 1 of the doubleheader, or do you save him for game 2 just in case?
I save him for game 2, because if you don't have to pitch him at all, then that would be ideal. You want to use other people. You let that arm get a little bit extra time. Now, maybe in game 2, you're up a lot. You throw him in for an inning, maybe 2 innings, just to make sure that the arm's still there, keep him warm, keep him ready to roll. But, ideally, don't want to have to throw your best pitcher. But if you do get rocked around a little bit in game 1, you bring out that pitcher in game 2, get yourself back on the line.
If you're watching, send us your viewing parties at ProView TV. We'll give you a shout out. Maybe we'll throw some out there, but we'll definitely mention it. I know Volcano Vista boys are watching. We got a shot of that team on the deck of somebody's pool, enjoying the seating and selection process. All right, I think we have our first bracket of the day, so let's take a look. Our director, Jason Pohl, tells us we have one, and there it is. It's for a softball. The number 1 seed announced a little bit earlier, exclusively on the NMAA app. It was Gallup, the Bengals. They're the number 1 seed against 16-seeded Portales. At the bottom of the bracket there, the 2 seed is Lovington. They'll have the number 15 Academy. Oh, sorry, we'll get to 5A in just a moment. Back at the top, the 8-9 matchup is Belen and Valley. And then back at the bottom there, the 7-10, it's Aztec against Los Alamos, the Hilltoppers. Towards the middle of the bracket, the 5 seed, it's the Bulldogs of Artesia against the number 12 seeded Bloomfield Bobcats. And then the 13-4 is Deming against St. Pius, the Sartans. And then the number 3 seed, look out for the Colts of Silver, all that history and tradition. They get the number 14 seed, Mayamura. The 6-11 features Bernalillo and the Goddard Rockets. Number 1 seed, Gallup, very deserving of that seed, Aaron. But who else in that bracket can make noise? Who else would it not surprise you to see lift the trophy at the end of the week?
I mean, I like St. Pius on the same side of that bracket. Double elimination with softball kind of makes it interesting because last year everybody was talking about the Artesia Bulldogs being guaranteed to walk in. And then with the double elimination, they had to play all the way through. But, you know, Gallup has got to be the favorite every year. I mean, Lovington as well, top teams in that game. But, yeah, Gallup showed last year. They've showed for the last 4 years that they're probably the biggest powerhouse in 4A girls.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think you can count out Silver, that 3 seed. They've won this thing so many times.
Oh, yeah?
They got quite the pitcher there in the circle. They've not allowed a lot of runs during the season. And they're tested through this format. They know what it takes to win this. Is there a sleeper somewhere in this bracket?
I mean, I look around, maybe Bernalillo, but they're going to run into Silver, and then they're going to drop into that double elimination side. But I can't really see a lot of sleepers. I mean, for me, Gallup, the way they've played over the last, 3 years, has just made them just such a favorite on top.
All right, let's go ahead to 5A softball. We'll come back to this bracket and get some more of Aaron's thoughts later. Maybe he'll even pick a winner. Who knows? 5A softball. It's up next here. Let's take a look. The number 1 seed announced earlier on the NMAA app, Alamogordo, the Tigers. No surprise there. They'll get the 16 seed Cleveland. Coach Angel Castillo and his Storm. I know he's been dealing with a lot away from the facility this season. Sneaks into the tournament at 16. The 8-9 matchup is Piedra Vista against Albuquerque High. And then the 5-12 features the Cibola Cougars and the Scorpions of Farmington. The 13 seed, it's Oregon Mountain, the Knights, against the number 4 seed, the Hobbs Lady Eagles. The number 3 seed, they're in the same district as the 1 seed, Alamogordo. Centennial, the Hawks, are the 3 against the 14 seed, Sandia. The 6 is Carlsbad against the number 11, Los Lunas. The 7-10 features Mayfield and Rio Rancho, and there's the La Cueva Bears at the bottom of the bracket, the number 2 seed against the number 15 seed Volcano Vista. No surprise with Alamogordo getting the 1, La Cueva the 2, the 3 there is Centennial. Traditionally, this is a bracket that gets dominated by the southern teams.
Yep.
Can La Cueva change that this year?
They possibly could, but I'm still liking that Centennial, that Alamogordo. I mean, the 3 and the 1 in this one, like you mentioned, the Southern teams tend to be so good. I mean, they've been in the championship every year. And, you know, it wouldn't surprise me to see Cibola be the team that I think could knock Alamogordo off of that top side, but I just don't see that happening. You know, it's a Southern-dominated team. La Cueva looking really strong, though, this year.
Centennial's pitching has been so good this season, but when it's counted in the district against Alamogordo, the Tigers have gotten the better of them, right? So can you make a case for Centennial, or do you think, hey, Alamogordo's already beat them throughout the season, and are you looking at that 1 seed as pretty powerful in this district?
Well, I mean, Centennial's also got that battle-tested side to it, right? They've played in this championship game a couple of times, and they had some really young stars lead them to that victory, or their one of the victories last year. So I would like to see that Centennial, but Alamogordo, from my understanding of what I've seen this year, they have probably the best player in all of the states. So
if you're watching at home, at ProView TV is where you can send us your viewing parties. Let us know. But we're going to keep rolling here. I think we're going straight into 1A baseball. Let's see here. Yeah, there it is, 1A baseball. First round bye for the number 1 seeded Logan Longhorns. Coach Kyle Griffith, the district champs out of District 3, 16-4 regular season, 7-2 in district. No surprise that they're the 1 seed. They get the bye. The 5-4 beneath them is Grady against Mesilla Valley. That should be an interesting matchup. Melrose, the Buffaloes, against Magdalena in the 3-6. Congratulations to both of those teams. And with the 6th seed, Magdalena coming in, I think that probably knocked out either Elida or Jemez Valley. And then the bye at the bottom goes to Gateway Christian. The Warriors, the district champs out of District 2, get the bye there. The 1 seed Logan, they're a heavy favorite. Super sophomore Mason Wallen leading the way with a 5.59 average. He's batted in 44 runs, and they only play 20 games, so that's pretty impressive. And then an 8-0 Caden Stoner, 84 strikeouts in his 43 innings of work. Can anyone stop Logan in this 1A bracket?
If anybody can, it would be Melrose. That's the team that knocked him off last year. But yeah, I've seen videos of Stoner pitching, and he's looked so good this year. I mean, really impressive to see, and of course having the sophomore like you mentioned. But I look at that 3 seed. The question's going to be, can they get through Gateway Christian? But Melrose beat Logan last year, and we run into that big question, right? So if Stoner pitches on on Thursday during the actual tournament itself, will he be able to go on Saturday or it's Wednesday and then Friday for 1A?
Yeah, and you've seen it in brackets past years. This 1A bracket, when the aces throw early, that championship game could be a 14-13, 14-12. It's freshmen, it's 8th graders taking the hill. It can be pretty clunky during the championship in 1A.
And it's a huge ballpark, too. So they're playing over at UNM again this year, and that ballpark gets huge. You see that ball get lost out in left field, get lost out in right field. And they can put up points there. I do have to pick, though, like the Melrose Buffaloes last year taking the championship. It's a strong team to come back and try again this year. But that 1, 2, 3, Logan, Melrose, Gateway Christian, those are the 3 teams, right? Every year we see those 3 push their way into the championships, and I think that's likely what we'll see again this year.
I believe we have the 2 seed right next to that, 1A baseball. So let's look at the 2A bracket here. There's a lot to talk about, so we'll get into it in a moment. The number 1 seed is the Lions of Santa Rosa. Congratulations to Coach Sanchez, the district champs out of District 6. They get the bye up top there. The 8-9 features Texaco and Pecos. McCurdy, the 5 against the 12 seed of Mescalero Apache. The bye goes to Manal Elk Grove. Congratulations is in order there. That's a pretty cool story, actually. The number 3 seed Tularosa also receives a bye. They'll get the winner of the 6th-seeded Eunice Cardinals against Capitan. And then the 7th seed is the Lynx of Rehoboth Christian against the Hawks of Laguna Acaba. The bye at the bottom goes to Loving. The Falcons are at the bottom of the bracket at the 2 seed. First of all, first thing that just jumps out at me at this bracket is you're not used to seeing a 6 next to Eunice. You're not next to seeing an 8 next to Texaco. Some perennial powers that are having some down seasons.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at was Eunice usually seeing that 1, 2, 3 spot. But, look at that number 4. I mean, you wanted to tell us that story. I'm sure you will. But looking at Manal Oak Grove, a very young, program, and here they are sitting on the 4 already.
McCurdy, that 5 seed, they hit the baseball, Aaron. Pitching, it's an issue. But offensively, they're going to put up some numbers. I don't see them really
struggling. Who needs pitching?
Right, yeah. I don't see them struggling against Mescalero Apache at all. I could see them taking Manal Oak Grove to the limit there in that second round because that McCurdy team, they have scored 90 runs on the year. They hit.
That is a lot. 290?
Yeah.
And they played something like 25 games, so they're averaging more than 10 runs a game. I mean, that's crazy numbers.
But if you love pitching, I think your attention has to turn towards the bottom of the bracket and the number 2 seed Loving.
Yeah, 2 losses on the year for Loving. I mean, very impressive. Both them and Santa Rosa, you look at their records and you just sit there and think, okay, well, somebody's got to give on that one, right?
Anything? All right. Can those perennial powers, Eunice, Texaco, can they navigate their way through, do you think? Is there any way one of those 2 Blue Bloods can make it to the semis or even a championship appearance?
I think Eunice has at least one upset in them. So, no offense to the Wildcats, but Tularosa's the one that I think Eunice would be looking at. Maybe they can beat them and knock their way into the semifinals. They don't have the same powerhouse team that they did. I mean, before that team was really heavy on a lot of the multi-sport athletes. This year, they just don't have that same. I don't think they can push into the finals. But a semifinal appearance wouldn't surprise me on that side.
And I think the problem for Texaco is most likely that opening round, they're going to face Coach Ruiz's son on the hill for Pecos. That's going to be asking a lot to beat a pitcher like that. And also, by the way, he's also their best hitter. I think that's a bad matchup for Texaco. I don't see it this year.
Yeah, well, and even if they do get through that, then they have to take the Lions after that. That's a rough go, and I just don't see Texaco breaking through that quarterfinal.
I think we have 3A next. Let's take a look at the 3A bracket here. The number 1 seeds were announced earlier exclusively on the NMAA app. So I know you've already probably know the number 1 seed. It's the Indians of Cobre. They get the bye. The other byes go to the number 4 seed Nimi, the number 3 seed St. Michael's, and the number 2 seed East Mountain. But the matchups in the first round, the 8-9, it's West Las Vegas against Navajo Prep. Then it's Santa Fe Indian, the Braves against Zuni, the 12 seed. Ruidoso, the Warriors, they'll get Sandia Prep, the 11, the 7 seed. Robertson gets the number 10 seeded Hatch Valley team. Cobre had a really nice season. East Mountain always seems to be there. Strong top 4 seeds in this bracket, Aaron.
Yeah, really, really good. And East Mountain, I mean, that district that they play in is pretty tough because they have to play against New Mexico Military Institute in that one. And I'm really interested in seeing that, assuming Santa Fe Indian can get through Zuni, that 4-5 matchup between Santa Fe Indian and Nimi. I mean, every single year those two teams appear in the playoffs against each other, and it always seems so good to watch.
The Timberwolves, led by Rylan Radosevic, 29 of his 51 hits this year have gone for extra bases. That's amazing. Santa Fe Indian, don't count them out. They're number 5 seed. They're incredibly young. They got a lot of freshmen contributing to this thing. But Nimi, not as strong as they usually are. I mean, they have a frontline starter, that's for sure. So it's going to be tough when you have to face Tegan Maloney. But, I mean, that would be the magical story in this bracket, wouldn't it be? Santa Fe Indian, that young Braves team?
Yeah, I would love to see it. And they've, ever since we've come back from COVID and they had the pause in sports, Santa Fe Indians baseball team has seemed to get better and better every year. I don't think this is their finals year, but that's a team that I think in the next couple of years with that young roster, they have a big case to break through in 3A.
The number 1 seed has to be very confident, though, in the power pitching they bring to this tournament. They have strikeout arms at Cobre. And in the tournament, that's important.
Yeah, and you need to have multiple arms, too. We already talked about that at the start of this. If you don't have 2 pitchers on your roster, then day 2, day 3, you're already sitting there and hoping that you can put up 13, 14 runs to compete with the team that's putting that up on you. And Cobre, having multiple weapons just makes you so much better for this format that we're playing in.
Credit really to that district, too, because you see a Santa Fe Indian there, you see St. Michael's, you see Robertson.
West is there.
You see West, and it seems like we see that in almost every sport. That district takes up half of a 3A bracket, really.
Yeah, it puts, like you said, every sport, they seem to be in it every single time. And, it's either they send 3 or they send 4, and this one they send 4.
All right, let's move ahead to 4A. The bracket, the number 1 seed belongs to the Goddard Rockets. Congratulations to Coach Alvarado. The Rockets had a 20-6 season. They were 8-1 in district. They were the district champs out of District 4. They'll get the number 16 seed Kirtland Central, the Broncos. Coach Valdez, third-place finishers in District 1. The 8-9 features the Bloomfield Bobcats. Congratulations to Coach there. And he'll face Chad Kuhn in the Valley Vikings, the number 9 seed Valley. A little bit of a down season this year, but Coach Kuhn plays a tough schedule, so they still get the 9. But they will have to travel to Bloomfield. The Bobcats, Coach Valencia there, the district champs out of District 1. That's an interesting matchup. The 5 seed belongs to Artesia, the Bulldogs. Congratulations to Artesia. Their first round assignment is Santa Teresa, the 12 seed. The 13 seed, it's Chaparral. That's the Lobos, isn't it? I believe so. Right? Yeah, the Lobos against St. Pius in the 13-4 matchup. Craziness at the end of that district for St. Pius.
Every year it seems right now.
And you know what? They're going into this tournament for, it's kind of rare. Nobody really talking about Pius this year, which is weird.
Well, it's because, they had Gene Trujillo leave, and then everybody's like, oh, well, now who's on St. Pius? But they're still looking, every game of theirs that I've seen this year, they still have that offense. It's not the same power offense as it was, but they string together hits, and they've got good enough pitching.
Bottom of the bracket, the second finisher in District 5 was the Belen Eagles. Congratulations to Coach Wisniewski. The home game there against Aztec, the 14. The Aztec, they'll struggle, I think, against Belen. That's a tough matchup. I think
Belen's been real good this year.
They hit the ball. They got some arms. It's a tough trip for Aztec there. The 6th seed, it's Academy against Los Alamos, the Hilltoppers. That would be a really, really, really good matchup in soccer, wouldn't it?
That would be a championship matchup in soccer.
It's an opening round matchup in baseball. Academy at the 6th seed. That's a lower seed than they're used to the last couple of years. What's going on at Academy there where they've had a little bit of a down year, Aaron?
I actually didn't get to see them this year.
That's well put. Coach Alexander and his company, they graduated so much pitching, right? All they have left in that lineup, it seems like, is their catcher, Satish Raichur.
Yeah, Raichur.
Like, their offense not what it usually is. Like, I think they're ripe for an opening round upset. Now, I don't know if Los Alamos can do the job there, but this is not your typical Powerhouse Academy team, is it?
No, actually, now I remember I saw them at that Rio Rancho tournament, and the pitching was what I was kind of looking for, because usually, whether or not they have that big offensive player like last year, I think it was the first baseman, well, usually they have at least one or two arms, but I just didn't see it in the one opportunity I did get to see them. So, I mean, the pitching is going to be a big question for them.
The 7 seed is Hope Christian, the Huskies. Congratulations to Coach Salinas. That's a juicy matchup right there. District matchup with the number 10 seed Bernalillo. Congratulations to Coach Puentes. Two interesting stories both here. You know, Hope Christian, you think, oh, private school, all that money. That's really not the case, right?
No.
Like, other than their basketball gym, football teams are practicing on a non-football facility. Baseball teams, they don't have their own facility to practice at, right?
They don't even have a field at home.
Exactly. So what Coach Salinas has done there is really phenomenal. And then Bernalillo, when they're out in the field, the dugout's empty. I mean, they got 10 dudes, and 9 of them are on the field. Right? So it's crazy what Bernalillo's been able to do. They've actually had a really nice season with such a small roster. That's a really cool matchup. Two really cool stories.
No, it'll be a lot of fun. And Coach Salinas, like you were mentioning with Hope Christian's done a really good job. His pitchers aren't power pitchers. Like, some of them can push into the 80s, but they're guys who have a lot of different options with what they can pitch. So we're talking that classic style, a guy who throws 5, 6 different curveballs. And that's what Hope's going to be hoping to push through Grants with.
The district champs out of District 5, Grants, the Pirates, they're the 2 seed at the bottom of the bracket. They'll get the 3rd place finish out of District 4, the Portales Rams. Grants that's a team that has 5 guys that can give you innings. Coach Furby always does a great job there. That's a really good team at the bottom of the bracket. They got to navigate quite a lot, though. I mean, Bernalillo and Hope, whoever comes out of that's a good team. That'll face an interesting matchup with Grants. I like the way this bracket lays out, Aaron. Any other thoughts?
No, it's going to be really fun, and seeing Belen and Grants having to face off potentially to go, you know, if either of them wants to go to the championship, that's probably who they have to break through. Obviously, last year, the work that Grants did to win that district and kind of build, but Pius was still the one that ends up breaking through the championship, right? Pius ends up playing Academy. I think this year that we're pretty well set up to get a new matchup here in 4A. I mean, that's, like you mentioned, the Academy Chargers are lower down the seed. They're going to have to break through, and there's just been some really good looks from teams like Grants, teams like Belen. And, you know, the Artesia Bulldogs, they don't have your traditionally best lineup, and they had those struggles. They lost to Goddard here with a chance to win the championship. But Artesia could be another team that breaks through, and, you know, if they can beat Santa Teresa, whoever they play from that Chaparral St. Pius side is going to face a tough team in Artesia.
What really intrigues me is the selections Goddard has to make. They could conceivably hold their best 2. They have 2 really good starters. I don't think they need either of those 2 to get past Kirtland Central. Do you roll the dice there, you know, when you get to the second week, assuming they get past Kirtland Central, right? Now you're into the second week. Do they roll the dice, not throw an ace early? Not every coach is going to have that option. I think Goddard has it. Also, I'm curious how they set that up in that opening weekend as well.
Well, it depends who they play, right? And I know that having seen Coach Kuhn's team a few times, if you're Goddard and you don't throw somebody who can, you know, really put the ball on there, Valley does have a lot of offense hiding on that team. You know, their pitching isn't the greatest. They've got about one really stud pitcher and some guys who can throw, but if you don't throw somebody good against Valley, they can put offense. Like, they can crank the ball, they can string together hits. So you probably, if you're Goddard, you want to go with somebody strong there.
All right, 5A, here we go. Let's go. Interesting thing out of this, I'm just following some social media stuff with James Yotis. There was a 4-way tie in 5A between Sandia, Volcano Vista, Carlsbad, and Rio Grande. Volcano Vista's wins over Rio Grande and Carlsbad gave Volcano Vista the 6th seed, Carlsbad the 7th seed. So my Rio Grande Ravens at the short end of that tiebreaker puts them at the 8th spot right there. That means a second-round matchup with La Cueva potentially. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. Number 1 seed La Cueva. No surprise there for Coach Gerard Pineda and company. They'll get the 16th seed, Mayfield. Rio Grande is the 8th seed against the 9th seed El Dorado. That's a good team. That's an interesting matchup. That's no guarantee for Rio Grande there. The 5-12 is Sandia against Las Cruces. The 4-13 features Hobbs and Oregon Mountain. Then the 3 seed is Cleveland against the 14 PV. The 6, Volcano Vista against the 11 Los Lunas. The 7, Coach Mike Magaha in his first year at Carlsbad. Saw him on Saturday. He was scouting at La Cueva. He'll get Centennial. The Hawks, they're back right there. They graduated the best player in the state of New Mexico. They still draw a 10 seed. The 2 seeds Rio Rancho against the 15 seeded Clovis Wildcats. Obviously, that tiebreaker is going to be the big thing everyone's talking about, right?
Yeah, that tiebreaker, and I'm looking at the tiebreaker too with Cleveland and Rio Rancho because Cleveland won that district, and yet the Rio Rancho Rams end up with that 2 seed, so they must have, they end up tied with that. It's also interesting to me that the 5A and the 4A have teams that look almost identical out on the field because Goddard and La Cueva actually played this year at the Rio Rancho tournament, and they wore the exact same jersey, essentially. You had to really look hard to differentiate the lettering on it. But, yeah, that tiebreaker pushes Rio Grande late, into that bracket where they're going to have a much tougher run with it. But for Carlsbad, that's kind of ideal because right now that 2 seed Rio Rancho, they've kind of stumbled out here down the stretch. They narrowly were able to knock off Volcano Vista the other day, but the bats have gone cold in Rio Rancho. So if you're on this bottom side of the bracket right here, that's kind of where you'd want to sit if you're Carlsbad. You're the winner of that tiebreaker.
Interesting rematch between Cleveland and Piedra Vista. Cleveland will have another chance to beat them this time, maybe keep a little better track of the pitch count so it sticks, right? So
I didn't want to mention anything there.
Right?
The other day I was watching Cleveland and they had a pitcher pushing up into the 110s, the 115s. I'm like, oh, I hope they're paying attention.
That Carlsbad Centennial matchup, that intrigues me. Las Cruces also, when they bring in their sophomore, the quarterback, right, he throws hard in relief. If they can get good starting pitching, they got a pretty good bullpen. But Sandia, I think, they're in that really tough, battle-tested district.
Oh, yeah. Coach Hilton's got a good team, too.
All right, I think the question on everyone's mind, well, I have 2 questions. That 8-9 looks awfully good, right?
That's probably the funnest matchup we see. As you tend to get with the 8-9.
Right, but it's really good this year. Mm-hmm. Can Rio Grande survive that?
Yeah, I think they can. They've got a lot of different options. That when we talk about the question of who you're going to throw day one, Rio Grande has those options. So in 2 games against El Dorado, plus both of these teams are used to playing those doubleheader type of schedules. So I think Rio Grande used to it. They can probably pass El Dorado, but I would not be surprised at all if the Eagles take that one.
Is there a seed outside the top 4 there that you would make a case for? Would it be the obvious in Sandia?
Yeah, it would be 5. It'd be Sandia. I did not get a chance to see Oregon Mountain this year.
3 really good starting pitchers, all of them seniors.
At Oregon Mountain?
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes it interesting when we come into that tournament style. But I like Sandia there. Volcano Vista, you got to give a lot of love to what they've been able to do as well because they have, strong pitching on that side. But the offense there, however they shake up that lineup, it seems that they've always got people who can home run, and maybe it's just that the wind's always blowing out to center at Volcano.
But look at the way their district, or look at the way the bracket's stacked. They'll have to go through their district again. So if they get through there, then they got to beat Cleveland. Let's say they could get advanced in, they have to beat Rio Rancho again, and they've shown that they can't do that, right? Because they haven't won that district.
Yeah, that's been the big problem for them. Like the other day, they had that opportunity to beat Rio Rancho at home, and they let it slip through their grasp. But I wouldn't be surprised if they can make a run here in there. But yeah, Sandia is really the only one outside of the 5 that I really believe could actually make their way into the championship.
Be sure to check out the brackets and the schedules on nmact.org. Get your NFHS Network Pass. Aaron and I and the entire ProView team will be so excited to bring you state